Andrew Brenner is with us, Nat Alliance Securities, to give us his insights in the market. So I know you're looking at Japan, you're looking at equities here at home. We just got in some confidence numbers. What's your vibe right now when you see the Dow getting closer to 40,000? I know you don't care about the Dow like people care about the S&P is more important, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I do care about the S&P more than I do about the Dow, but nonetheless, what I think is happening is I think there's a continued interest in equities. I think people are still underinvested. I don't see a bubble on the horizon, but I don't see us going a lot higher. I mean, Goldman Sachs is out there saying if things go right, you could hit 6,000 this year. I think JP Morgan said something to the effect that they see, Bank of America said they see 7,000 in the S&P, by the end of 2026. But I do think we need to have a correction. But, I've been following interest rates, and I really do believe that Jay Powell is a dove. I believe that he's going to come out dovish in his speech on Friday. Unfortunately, I'll be around to watch it, but there's nothing to trade. As well as I think the PCE number could be a little bit better than people anticipate. So I think the economy's slowing. I think labor's slowing. I think rates have to come down. We might not be the first. Obviously, the Swiss were the first last week to lower rates, but the next might be the Bank of England and then the ECB and then maybe us. But I really do think that Powell will override all other 18 voters and will make sure that we start easing by June. And that's my view right now. The idea that the Fed could ease in May, I think what the Fed's going to do at the May meeting is adjust their quantitative tightening. So I think they're going to do something. It's just not easing. But, we've said before, Powell's got to start easing because he's got to keep the election in mind. He doesn't want to start easing right before the election because then it looks like it favors one versus the other. And nonetheless, inflation has been coming down. Yeah. And I really do think that the labor market is slowing down. We're seeing a lot of layoffs. A lot of people that my kids' ages, as well as my nieces and nephews, are getting laid off in big firms. Oracle, for one. It's really happening. So yeah. I do think that the economy is slowing down. I think labor's slowing down. I think you're going to see lower wages, and I think you're going to see lower inflation. Hence, we think lower rates, but not necessarily today. You've got $67 billion of 5 years to auction in a couple of hours. But, we're in a range. We're 410 to 430 for both 5 years and 10 years. And I don't think we're going to break that range until next week or until we get all the shorts to cover and start to go long. And I do think that's going to happen.
So it's interesting. First of all, I always think of FOB, which would be friend of Buffett. Now I'm thinking POP, power of Powell. Because it sounds like he's really, in your opinion, going to tell the committee, the Federal Open Market Committee, and say, listen, we need to cut. And you've been a proponent of that. You've been saying, get it done. So how many are we thinking? I mean, the dot plots are still saying 3, right? Ish.
Yeah, 3.1, 3.2.
So what are you thinking? How many are we thinking? 3 this year, 3 next year?
I'm not going out as far as next year yet. I still think we can get 4 this year. I was originally at 6, but now I find it very difficult without, 6 is off the table for right now. Right. But I do think 4, and I do think an adjustment in quantitative tightening will happen. So I think ultimately we'll go to lower rates. I just think we're way too high. At 5.5% right now, with inflation running at whatever number you want to pick, 2.5 was, 2.5 is the expectation for the PCE number on Friday. You can't have rates at 5.5% with inflation at 2.5%. It just doesn't make sense. So I think rates are going to come down because of that. I think Powell is very concerned with what the economy is going to look like next year, and he wants to get in front of it. Yeah. Remember, these cycles take 12 to 18 months to start to come into fruition. So I do think that Powell is going to force the committee. Look, he's had no dissents for as long as I can remember. He figures it out. Even though you had Bostic out yesterday saying, I'm only 1 cut for this year.
He reiterated
you know what?
his expectations for 1
He's
cut.
Wrong. He's just not in touch.
The Fed can afford to be patient as long as this economy holds up. He's the Atlanta Fed chief. Sure. And look,
but it's not just about the economy.
But you're thinking that
it's about
slowing.
Inflation as well.
Yeah.
It's the economy's part of it, and I do see it slowing. I mean, GDP's running around. I think the Atlanta Fed is 2.1. I saw something come out today. But the second part, which is just as important as far as rates go, is inflation.
Right.
And the question is, where should real rates be? And real rates are way too high. Yes, I read the Goldman Sachs report today saying financial conditions are easing, but that to me is not part of what the Fed should be thinking about. It's real rates, and as I just said, we're too high based on inflation.
Confidence came in a little lighter than expected. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, when confidence came out, I was on the train, so I didn't really get a lot of it, but I did see the highlights. Lower confidence, I really do think that we're slowing down.
It ticked down to 104.7 in
from
March,
107.
from a revised 104.8 in February. So it measures Americans' short-term expectations for income, business, and job markets. And just overall, consumers are confident, but maybe a little less so.
They're still confident, but I think they're starting to get worried. I don't think we're going to go into recession. That's never been my call.
Right.
But I do think we're going to slow down, and I think Powell's going to recognize. I think Powell is recognizing it now, based on what he's been saying. We're close to being able to lower rates. He's made a couple of those statements. So I really do believe that starting in June, we will have lower rates, and we'll have lower rates for the rest of the year. And I think maybe 4 rate cuts. But you know, if I have 30 seconds more, I'd like to say at least one more thing. If I don't, you can cut me off. Credit demand is off the charts. We've had over $507 billion of new issue IG credit come out this year. That has blown away all the records. Last year at this point, we were $373 billion. People are coming from all over the world to buy U.S. corporates. I see it out of Japan. I see it out of other parts of Asia. I see it all out of Europe. U.S. credit is the most desired piece of the puzzle in the world right now, and there's been nothing stopping it. And as long as that continues, we're going to go to lower rates.
So that, it tells you a few things. One, the confidence is here in the U.S., right? At the same time, for example, when China was buying all our treasuries, right? But on the other hand, when consumers are using credit, which they are, a lot of credit cards, the rates are high, the debt is high, the delinquencies are high, and they're going into the 401k. So the other countries and businesses coming to buy U.S. credit corporates, that's good news, right? I mean, that means they believe in the United States of America and our country.
That means
right?
that our economy
or there's no better alternative for them.
Well, yeah, I used to use the old phrase, the least dirty shirt in the laundry, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, and that's kind of what we got with the U.S. government and the fiscal problems. But nonetheless, I think the economy is in great shape. I think U.S. corporations are in great shape. And I can see that continuing all year long.
I just don't love the slowdown. I don't love the layoffs. I know we're near full employment. We're still near full employment.
Absolutely.
Pretty much,
we're
right?
at 3.9.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the year, what would you say to investors? I mean, you still think there's some room to move higher. You mentioned the Bank of America call for 7,000 in 2026. Where should people put their money to work? I know you're not, an advisor in that way, but just big picture. I mean, do you think bonds are it? Do you think equities might do well based on what you say?
What I think is, you have a barbell approach, whereas you put money in short-term bills, yielding 5.3 or 5.4, and you pocket that kind of income, which is state tax-free, and then you go a little bit into U.S. credit, and you have a little bit longer duration with credit. You stay away from 5-year treasuries and 10-year treasuries, and you use that money for credit. As far as equities go, I'm going to talk like other people. I'm not going to put any new money into equities until I see a 5% correction, possibly a 10% correction. It's been too long without a pullback.
How about Powell's tenure as our Fed chair?
2026, his term ends. He will not be reappointed, whether it be Trump or whether it be Biden. Biden actually came out 2 weeks ago and kind of hinted to Powell, you need to start dropping rates. Powell ignored him. Trump has said the same thing when he was in power and Powell was there. So I think Powell will finish. He's about 69, he'll be 71.
You think he makes it to 2026 is my question?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing to prevent him. He's rock solid.
Okay.
He can't be fired, without cause. And just not agreeing with the president is not considered cause.
Andrew Brenner, Alliance Securities, thank you for being here today. Always great to see you. Thanks.